Hi, and welcome to the Business Roundtable. Thanks, Larry. It's still fascinating what you're doing over at KICC. You're on the Business Roundtable now, where we discuss issues with Kenya's business leaders. And today we actually have a legend with us. She's the doyen, like we said at the very beginning, of Kenya's real estate industry, Muraya, who's a director at the Suraya Property Group. And we want to look at issues real estate, issues housing, and see where this country is going in that regard. So welcome, Sue.
Thank you.
And I'm going to start off being a very, very bad host because I'm going to be very rude.
Oh, please.
And say that there's this...
take off.
Yes. But there's this concern that people have that the real estate industry in Kenya may be overheated. If you think back to the financial crisis, the global financial crisis, what they say is that in the US it started with the real estate industry, people buying too much housing, expecting that it'll go up in price. And you can see the sort of same things happening in Kenya. Is that a concern?
No, it's not a concern. Actually, we are under. We need more houses. It's not like the US. What happened actually is that with the mortgage system in Kenya, for you to own a property, you have to be qualified. So there's no getting to own a house with no money down or getting a house because you're qualified, and you have to pay a deposit. You have to be qualified, and that's what wasn't happening in the US. They had this whole thing that everybody must own a house, so it was almost giving them away because you didn't even need to put any money down. Or
so the problem, what you're saying, the problem is actually more with the mortgage sector than the housing sector. Well, if you can sort of separate that in our minds.
You sort of can't separate it, but you see in Kenya, there's no way you can own a house unless you pay a deposit and you're qualified, or you can pay it in installments in cash. But you can't say because where the government is actually looking for people to own houses. So here they are, this segment needs to be given houses. That's what's happened. And it was a whole movement that everybody must own a house. So you found that people would actually put maybe a commitment fee, and you're not qualified, and you have 5 houses.
We even had a problem, if I read it correctly, you actually had an issue where the banks would actually push you to lie on your mortgage application just so that you could qualify.
Because there's so much competition amongst the banks for, just like almost, come and take the houses. So we're not even checking. That's the whole issue. Because in Kenya, we haven't gotten there. We haven't gotten to a point where we are actually selling off houses with no commitment or no checking. So that I don't see happening.
That's well
we need
and good.
More houses in Kenya.
That's well and good. But let's again, my final rude questions is, even if you do say that, we still have a problem right now. Nairobi and Mombasa being the chief culprits.
Right.
But it's also noticing it's trying to spread to other towns where people are not buying houses to live in. People are not even buying houses to rent. People are buying houses because they hear if you buy land in Kitengela, it'll go up 100% in 2 years.
Which it does.
If you buy a house in Kilelesha, it'll go up 70% in a year. And once you have people getting into the real estate market because of those kinds of concerns and those kinds of things, then it starts to me sounding like a bubble. Even if there's not a problem with mortgages, if people, even if they are qualified, but they're reaching over to houses that can barely afford because they think the price will go up or the land price will go up, isn't that going to create a problem?
No, it won't. Because you see what happened, for a long time in the country, we needed homes and they were not being constructed because the interest rates are just too high. So there's a huge period of time, maybe 15 years or 20 years, that actually we didn't keep up with the economy, the way the development or the growth needed to go. So the people buying plots and speculating, yes, it's true, there's still a buyer because it's that bottleneck for people who want to buy from them. So it hasn't reached there at all, because when you invest in a plot, tomorrow you can sell it. Somebody else comes and you can buy that plot, and then you can subdivide. So that period of time that people were not able to invest or to buy things that they could afford, it probably about 20 years, is what we are still dealing with.
So we're sort of catching up with that.
We haven't even reached there yet. Yes, so there's a deficit.
That makes you happy because you, like we say at the very beginning, you have become a legend in the property industry in Kenya. Whether it's your name, Muraya, or the name of your company, Suraya, and the whole notion of new ideas that you bring into this market, what made you, first of all, get into real estate?
Okay. For me, it was a combination of things. One thing, my husband, my dad, the CEO of Suraya Property Group, Peterborough, is an architect. So this is something we're working on over years. That why are we going to other parts of the world like South Africa, and finding houses and homes and areas where the people are living in communities. Why are you working hard in whatever you do? And when you actually want to buy a particular house, you have to start now compromising in where you want to live. So we started looking at it and said, why can't we do it here? Why aren't we having certain quality homes, certain lifestyles in Kenya? When you want it, you should be able to try and, I mean, there should be somewhere where you can get it. So you don't have to have your house on its own with these walls, you know, all over, and you're trying to, put yourself where. What happens? The community living. We still want to keep the village atmosphere at the same time.
And this is sort of your gated community, because I remember driving past one of them. I think it's in Kitisu.
Yeah, on Red Hill Road.
We're absolutely fascinated by it, and you sort of start drooling over it and thinking, I should have the money to afford this. And I've seen the same thing going on in South Africa, where, in a sense, like what you're saying is, the wall is on the outside. Yes. But internally, it's sort of a little village atmosphere.
You have a pool, you have a jogging track.
Does that work in Kenya, first of all, as a concept?
It is working, because what happens is that there's a certain age group of people who buy into that community. And even if they're older children or younger children, you want your children to ride the bikes. Yes. You want your child to actually know their neighbors. We're getting to a point where you put the higher gate, I put a higher wall, and everybody's enclosing themselves within themselves. And what you want is a good home and a good community living and security. And the property also appreciating in value, because it's offering you those added advantages that the other houses don't have. But we don't want an area, the country, to be in such a way that people are not communicating and experiencing different things. Going to have breakfast, and that's what we used to do. Yeah. We used to actually walk into our neighbors' houses, and you have breakfast and lunch in another house, and dinner in another house.
You don't need to worry if your children are home at night because you're aware there's someone in the neighborhood.
And their activity. They're not supposed to be sitting watching TV throughout, which is good. You can
Except
watch
for PM
TV.
Live. They can watch PM Live.
Yeah, exactly. That's business, so it's okay. Yes. But that's what we're talking about, that you have a community that is gated, is secured, but at the same time, there's also a lifestyle that you're giving. And it's affordable.
And that's going to be my next question, because you will have a complaint that comes and says, it's all very well for us to have gated communities that have houses with no internal fences and all sorts of things. You have places where you can buy your groceries, places you can have a cup of coffee and all that. It's all well and good when you're in there. Right. But it's secluding these people who live in that gated community from the wider Kenyan community, from the wider Nairobi community, or whatever town or city it's in. Is that a legitimate concern, one? Secondly, is it possible to do a gated community concept at a lower price level or a lower price structure?
Right. That's what we're working on. Actually, the whole concept of gated community is not to exclude, because wherever it is, you have them getting their workers from that area. You have the house helps, you have the cooks, you have the gardeners. So it's actually not excluding. It's just creating some sort of order for within the owners and the people in the community. But it adds on, because when it's there, then you need those people, and they do come into your community. But at the same time, we're not looking for just a certain level or price range. We want to go into all the different. What we're working on is like our project on Mombasa Road, which is Lone View. There's a four ways on Kiambu Road, and then there's a one on Red Hill Road. It's different price ranges, but all of them are gated. So on Mombasa Road, we have an apartment for 2.1
million shillings.
2.1 million shillings, and it's in a gated community.
So it's working across price structures.
Exactly.
And like I was saying, just out of interest, once you get to a certain age, which I shall not reveal for myself, you start looking at homes and houses. Are you reaching the market that you want to reach? One, and because I've seen all these different communities that you have and the different developments that you're targeting. Right. Are you managing to reach the sort of people you want to reach?
What we did when we started off with the Rose and Gardens, we reached a certain price range in a certain community, and then we started working on the different ones. When you go to four ways, the houses are 9 million on an eighth, and there are 14 of them in a courtyard. So you reach a different one. So every year and every time we're working on a project, we're targeting a different price range and a different community. At Lone View, it's 2.1. We even want to work even lower, where we can give you a house for $1 million a million, 1.5.
It's a good entry point for sort of owning a home, isn't it?
Yes, because that is where you actually initiate your investment profile or portfolio. Because if you're able to put down the deposit and you can qualify for a 2.1 million apartment, by the time it's finished, it's probably gone up by maybe 2.5 to maybe about 2.7. That's where you start. But you can't say you want to start in the house that is 20 million. You have to start with what you can be qualified for, or what you can put a deposit, or if you can pay in the installments, the 10% installments. But start somewhere. Start in that plot.
Yeah, of course. Back to you as a company,
yes.
And what you've managed to achieve is a lot of people look at you and say, there goes a successful woman, there goes a successful business person.
Yes.
And you obviously had an origin. And for me, the greater interest is, where did you get the funding to be able to do what you're being able to do right now? Because I'd imagine that what you're doing now is costing somewhere in the region of hundreds of millions of shillings.
Yes, it is.
Financing is always a problem to any business person.
Yes.
What's your source of funding? How did you manage to begin, and how you managed to proceed now?
Okay, initially it was a completely different picture, because what we did, we're dealing with a very new concept in the market. So selling that to the finances was also quite a challenge. But what we did, we actually took a collateral on our home.
Oh,
yes.
That's risky though.
It is, but we believed in our concept. We believed in what we were doing.
But there's always this thing of business people coming to you. No, I believed in myself. I may believe in myself, but the idea doesn't work, and I'm out of a home, and I'm out of an investment I've been trying to make for 20 years.
But if you've seen it through, it's your vision, and you have faith to follow it through, then you can put everything that you have, because you are the one who can see the bigger picture.
Yes.
But so that's what we did, because what we needed that for was working capital. Is actually to run the project, to get the approval, to set up the office. But after that, when we went out to sell the project, we did that on pre-sales. Which was a new concept.
Oh, I see.
You see, which is a new concept. But the research you do on the project is that once you put it on the market, you can be able to attract those clients on pre-sales. Then you can carry through the project. Because the first project, we did it like that.
What if that fails? It's a very risky thing, because if the pre-sales don't come through, you can't continue. You can't actually complete what you're doing.
No, can't does not exist
It's
in
all
our
very,
company.
it's all very well a good soup for you to say that, but it's a possibility. There is a possibility that you may start. Then your pre-sales, not necessarily they don't happen, but they happen slower than you imagine them to be. So you're reducing the quantity.
That becomes a challenge. It turns out to be a challenge within the concept. It doesn't turn out to be a risk, because you yourself believe in it. So that's what happens. So if you treat it as a challenge, then you have the faith and you can see it as a vision. You can see the bigger picture. You keep going on.
All right. Let me ask you a question that my mother told me never to ask anyone who is married or lives in a home.
Yeah.
You work with your husband.
Yes.
How do you manage to stay with one person all day?
Yes.
During the day.
Right.
In the evening you're together. Don't you get tired of each other?
No, we don't. No, we don't. Because our conversations flow from one thing to the other. In one conversation, we are into this proposal that we put in this, for this project. And that's it. There's no thinking that these two people, in fact, our children had to learn that this is business conversation, because business conversations can actually be interrupting and that. And
you're obviously allowed to shout at each other
for business purposes. And then before you turn around and say, oh, okay, that's done. So I think the strength is knowing how to close the boundaries and say, this is it, we're discussing business. And then, because they keep changing, we're now looking for new land.
Yes.
So when we are going, maybe on that particular day, we actually say, wow, we want to do this project. Then the next thing, there's another issue we're discussing. So the whole day, you're into different conversations. So it doesn't get boring. In fact, it gets very interesting.
And you say you're looking for new land, which is, again, another personal concern of mine. Vision 2030 has outlined what we want to develop.
Right.
Is there a concern that there's too much development in Nairobi? Even if you look at Nairobi from a metro point of view, together everything being within Nairobi, but we're ignoring places like Eldoret, we're ignoring places like Kisumu, we're ignoring places like Kakamega, because everyone is trying to rush to the city.
I think that for us is what we're working on. We started here and we're doing quite a bit of it because it's still the need. See, again, it's also within the need of the clients. There's still need for housing within Nairobi. Yes. Yeah, there's still need for housing even in Eldoret. But for your concepts, you have to think through who's your buyer. So right now we're working on with Kiambu Road is a bit out, Mombasa Road. So we actually look at what is actually coming up and also the infrastructure that's coming up in the country. But it's not that we can't go to Eldoret and do the same, or go, because like right now we're getting even inquiries from Kigali, from Burundi, from Uganda. Please come and do what you're doing. But as a company, we have that plan, and we're growing, and we've been growing. So we don't want to go and say, look, let's start this, projects in Eldoret and here, and it has to be in the plan. But it's not impossible. You have to do it within the city, but also go out. Build it. When you build houses outside, then you have to build the other things that need to go with that.
It's just the house.
Yeah, because you see, who's buying those houses? Are they buying to live there? So where do they work?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because they have to pay for it. They have to pay for that house.
It's a wholesome thing.
It's a wholesome thing. You have to look through everything.
All right. Finally, as we sort of come to the end, are you concerned about foreign competition? One, it's sort of a two-part question. And secondly, what do you think this economy is looking like going forward?
I think Kenya is just so positive right now. There's the energy is excellent. We've got a very youthful population, which we need to educate to start buying homes early. That's one thing.
That's targeted at me, but it's fine.
Because it's all good to start investing early. But no, we're not, because we haven't even scratched the business in the development, in building housing. So if we have more people coming in, the quality just goes higher, and there's better housing, more systems in place. And let me tell you, we haven't even started doing developing. It's just the beginning. We have the people who want to buy houses at 1.5. Yeah. We have people who want homes at 700.
Of course.
So if you look at the segment and the population and the income brackets,
we're
nowhere near completing this avenue of homes.
All right.
Because that's the first thing you look for. It's a home, a job, and food.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. And that's a great place to live. She says, this is Sue Muraya says, we haven't even begun. And she also says that Wallace Kanter should go buy a house. Shall be speaking to her after this.